She chose chaos over you and you still blame yourself. You think it was because you weren't enough. Not funny enough, not dangerous enough, not mysterious enough. You tell yourself, maybe if you had been more silent, more dominant, more careless, she would have stayed. You whisper regrets into empty rooms. You replay every moment of softness and wonder if it was weakness. You search for where you slipped, where your tenderness became invisible, where your honesty became forgettable. But what if you didn't slip at all? What if the very things that made you real were the things that made her retreat? What if your peace made her restless, your clarity made her anxious, your steadiness made her feel exposed? You weren't chosen because you were safe. You were rejected because you were. That is the brutal paradox most men cannot accept. The modern woman says she wants stability, but deep inside, many are addicted to volatility. It feels like life. It feels like movement. Your calmness was a mirror she wasn't ready to look into. Not because you failed her, but because you made her see herself, and she didn't like what stared back. She was used to chaos, to emotional swings disguised as passion, to men who vanished and returned like storms, to anxiety mistaken for love. And you brought her stillness. You held the door open, not just to your home, but to your soul. And when she walked through it, she found no war to win, no drama to escalate, no ego to manipulate. She found a man who didn't need fixing, and that terrified her. 'Cause if you don't need fixing, then her love has no function. If you don't crumble, then her chaos has no power. She doesn't know how to love peace, because peace demands stillness. It demands presence, and presence requires facing pain. She's been running from her whole life. You were not rejected because you lacked value. You were rejected because you threatened her rhythm of dysfunction. She doesn't consciously choose the man who hurts her. She chooses the man whose instability matches the chaos within her. And you were too whole, too aware, too clear. She didn't know how to dance with that. She needed volatility to feel worthy. You offered certainty. She wanted the adrenaline of being chased. You offered consistency. She wanted the highs of tension and release. You offered quiet connection. And so she left. Not because you were wrong, because you were right too soon. And you being the man you are took the blame. You looked inward, as strong men do. You asked what you could have done differently. But the truth is, there is nothing more unattractive to a chaotic soul than a man who doesn't flinch. Your emotional maturity became a threat, not a gift. Your forgiveness made her feel small. Your understanding made her feel seen. And some people don't want to be seen. They want to be chased, adored, worshipped in their dysfunction. And you, without knowing, refused to play that game. You weren't perfect, no, but you were present. And in a world addicted to avoidance, presence is a dangerous thing. It strips away masks. It demands intimacy. It removes the excuse of, I didn't know better. And when you love someone like that truly, completely, patiently, confronts them with the possibility that their pain can't be blamed on others anymore, that their chaos is a choice. So she runs back to the storm, back to the man who won't answer her texts, back to the emotional roulette that lets her feel powerful in powerlessness. And you sit there wondering why your kindness wasn't enough, why your love didn't anchor her. But it did, for a moment, and that moment terrified her. 'Cause if she stayed, she would have to grow. And growth is painful, okay? Love, real love, is terrifying when you've never seen it before. It feels boring at first. It's quiet, almost dull, because it doesn't spike your adrenaline. It doesn't reward your trauma. It doesn't dance with your shadow. It dissolves it. And what's left when the shadow fades? It's just you, raw, real, vulnerable. She wasn't ready to be that version of herself. Not yet. So she left. She might say you were too good, or that something was missing, but she won't say the real truth. She was scared of how safe you made her feel. scared of how seen she became in your presence, scared of the version of herself she would have to become to love a man like you. And so you're left not only with heartbreak, but confusion, because no one tells men this. No one tells you that being emotionally intelligent won't guarantee love, that being grounded won't guarantee gratitude, that offering peace might still be met with retreat. But I will tell you, and I will tell you clearly, it wasn't your fault. She chose chaos over you, not because she wanted pain, but because she didn't know what to do with peace. And the day will come, maybe years from now, when she remembers your steadiness, when the drama grows old, when the chaos becomes exhausting, when the men she chased run out of tricks, and she will think of you, the man who didn't flinch, the man who didn't beg, the man who stood in his truth and offered it with open hands, and she will wonder what might have been. But by then, you won't be waiting. You'll have stopped blaming yourself. You'll have risen, not bitter, not closed. It's wiser, quieter, stronger. And the next time you meet someone who doesn't know what to do with your peace, you won't dim it. You'll smile, you'll walk on, and you'll understand. Your value was never in how much you could suffer for someone. It was in how much you refused to suffer unnecessarily. You chose truth over chaos, and that was never a mistake. You thought love was enough. Instead, showing up, being honest, being present would be rewarded. That if you remained calm in her storms, loyal in her doubts, patient in her distance, she would eventually see, eventually choose, eventually stay. But she didn't, and it broke something inside you. Because no one warned you that women don't always stay where they are loved. They stay where they feel alive. And aliveness doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means chaos, unpredictability, confusion, not because she's cruel, but because that's what her nervous system recognizes as love. You brought her safety, but she couldn't feel it, because safety, to the unhealed, feels like silence, like boredom, like the absence of noise they mistake for the absence of love. You gave her the opposite of what hurt her, okay? And because she hadn't yet understood her own pain, she didn't know how to receive you. That's the part you weren't told. That healing attracts the wounded, but it also threatens them. It forces them to choose, evolve or retreat, grow or go. And growth hurts more than chaos, because chaos is familiar. Growth is not. And so she left. Not because you failed, but because you succeeded in showing her a version of life she wasn't ready to meet. A version where love isn't earned through emotional survival, but simply received. A version where she didn't need to scream to be heard, manipulate to be seen, or run to feel wanted. You stripped away her weapons, not by force, but by refusing to be her battlefield. And without a war, she had no role to play. She couldn't test your jealousy. You trusted her. She couldn't provoke your anger. You held your ground. She couldn't confuse you into chasing. You stepped back, not out of weakness, okay, but because you don't chase what needs to be free. You don't hold what doesn't want to be held. And in doing that, you did the unthinkable. You loved her without trying to control her. And that was something she'd never seen before. Something both beautiful and terrifying, because real love unarmed, unguarded, unconditional requires responsibility. It requires self-awareness, and she wasn't there yet, so she ran. And now you sit here, not broken, but hollow. Not because you lost her, but because you lost your faith in love. Because your heart told you the truth. This time, you did it right. You didn't betray yourself. You didn't beg. You didn't abandon your values. You showed up fully, and she still left. That's the wound no one sees. It's the wound of a man who gave everything right and still wasn't chosen. But listen carefully. That wound is not your enemy. It's your initiation into sovereignty, into self-reliance, into the understanding that your worth is not measured by who stays, but by how you stay with yourself when they leave. You didn't lose her. She lost the version of herself she could have become beside you. And if she ever returns, it won't be to the same man. Because this time, you won't confuse love with tolerance. This time, you won't confuse intensity with intimacy. You won't confuse testing with passion. You'll know better, because pain taught you what peace never could. That not every heart is ready for truth. That not every soul wants freedom. That some people love chaos more than they love themselves. And when you see it, you will no longer chase it. You will no longer offer stability to those addicted to the high of destruction. You will offer it to yourself, and to the rare ones who can meet you in that place of inner stillness. This is the quiet revenge of the healed man. Not in anger, not in resentment, but in clarity. You become untouchable, not because you close off, but because you open wisely, selectively, without apology. You no longer ask, why wasn't I enough? Instead, you ask, why did I ever think I had to prove I was? You no longer see rejection as proof of failure. You see it as proof of misalignment, as evidence that the version of you that showed up was too whole for a woman who still needed chaos to feel alive. You don't hate her for that. You understand it. You bless her, quietly, from afar, because you know what it means to have lived in that chaos too. You know what it's like to crave the ones who won't stay. To confuse pain with meaning. To chase ghosts in the hope they'll become homes. But you've returned now, to yourself, to silence, to sovereignty. And that's the real turning point. When her leaving doesn't take you with her. When her chaos doesn't awaken your old wounds, your peace becomes more important than her approval. That's when you know you've healed. That's when you become dangerous, not to her, but to your former self. The self that thought love had to hurt. The self that thought being chosen was the goal. Now you know, being respected is the goal. Being true to yourself is the goal. It's being at peace even when the storm walks away is the prize. You offered her something sacred. She wasn't ready. That's not your burden to carry. That's hers. And if she ever finds her way back to herself, maybe she'll remember the man who loved her with hands open, not fists closed. Maybe, but by then, you'll be long gone, not bitter, not angry, just beyond the need to prove anything to anyone, especially the ones who left. She chose chaos over you, but she didn't know what she was choosing. Okay? She didn't realize she was walking away from a man who would feel her soul without fear, who would have protected her, not just from the world, but from herself. She thought she was leaving behind boredom, routine, safety, but she was leaving behind a mirror that loved her anyway. And now she's searching again, but not for you, searching for that feeling your presence gave her. The grounding, the depth, the way her madness didn't scare you, but you never allowed it to rule you. That's what haunted her. That's what she didn't know how to name. She mistook your groundedness for coldness, your silence for disinterest, your boundaries for distance. But it was none of those. It was self-respect. And to someone used to emotional chaos being the only proof of love, self-respect can feel like rejection. You refuse to argue just to create heat. You didn't fight for attention. A coup responded. And in a world obsessed with reaction that made you invisible, but not to everyone. There are those who are few who are ready, who don't need to be saved by chaos to feel worthy, who don't sabotage peace because it threatens their sense of control. But before they find you, you must fully find yourself, because the danger now is not that she left it as that you might try to become what she chose, thinking it will make you more lovable, that you'll start dimming your clarity to seem more exciting, that you'll start creating distance just to provoke desire, that you'll perform mystery instead of living in truth. Don't become unpredictable just to make her stay. Don't become volatile just to be remembered. If your presence couldn't awaken her, your distortion won't hold her either. You must resist the urge to edit yourself into someone who fits inside her wounds. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. You were never meant to be chosen by everyone. You were meant to be recognized by someone who doesn't need noise to feel seen. Someone who doesn't run from peace. But in order to meet her, you must protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Because once you know what it feels like to live without performing, without proving, without panicking, you will never return to relationships that confuse your calm for emptiness. Let her chaos go, okay? Let her need for drama belong to someone else. Not because she's evil, not because you're better, but because your path is different now. The man you're becoming doesn't chase storms. He builds shelter, he builds rhythm. He builds a life so rooted that only those who've already made peace with their own chaos can walk beside him. And that kind of woman won't test you to feel desired. She won't withdraw just to be pursued. She won't make love feel like a game you never agreed to play. She'll see you immediately, clearly, and she'll stay. Not because she's afraid to lose you, but because she recognizes what it took for you to become this calm. Because she's walked through her own fire too. That's the irony. The woman you were waiting for wasn't her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she exists. And she's not impressed by charm. She's not drawn to chaos. She doesn't want the thrill of anxiety disguised as love. She wants the truth. It's just like you. But you won't meet her if you keep chasing ghosts. You won't see her if you keep rehearsing conversations with the one who left. She's not back there. She's ahead. But you'll never find her if you don't close that door completely. Mourn it. Grieve it. Let the ache become quiet. And then, when the silence finally stops feeling empty, you'll realize it was never silence at all. It was space. Space to become. Space to build. Space to reclaim the parts of you that were buried under your need to be accepted. When you gave your love to the woman who chose chaos, you gave it freely. But now, you must learn to love more wisely. Not less fully, just less recklessly. Your heart is not something to be proven, something to be preserved. And the next time you give it, it will be to someone who doesn't see your calm as a threat, but as a home. Until then, let her go. Let the fantasy go. Let the illusion that if only you were different, she would have stayed dissolve completely. Because the truth is, if you'd been different, you wouldn't be you. And the you she left, the grounded, growing, patient version, wasn't a failure. He was a beginning. Not for her, for you. She chose chaos over you. Let that be the last time. Let this be the moment you stop romanticizing her confusion and start honoring your clarity. Because when you stop chasing the ones who leave, you make space for the one who's already on her way. Not to save you, not to fix you, but to walk with you as equals, as allies, as people who both survived their own storms and no longer confuse destruction with love. There is a moment when the man who is left finally stops asking why. Not because he no longer cares, but because the question itself becomes irrelevant. Why did she leave? Becomes, why did I believe I needed her to stay? And in that single shift, everything changes. That is the beginning of sovereignty, the beginning of your return to yourself. Because she was never the final answer. She was the mirror. She was the fire. She was the storm that revealed what needed to burn away. And you, thinking she was home, handed her your peace like it was a gift. But peace is not a gift, it's a responsibility. A man who gives it away too easily loses more than love. He loses himself. But now you know. Now you see it. You see that your value was never meant to be negotiated through her moods, her silence, her tests. It was meant to be claimed quietly from within. And from that place, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop seeking closure from people who would never open to you in the first place. Because real closure doesn't come from others. It comes from the decision to no longer be at war with what happened. From the decision to stop bleeding where you were never seen. That's how you rise. Not in vengeance. Not in bitterness. But in stillness. In becoming so rooted in your own truth that her chaos no longer moves you. Her return no longer tempts you. Her memory no longer tricks you, because the man you are now would never beg for what the boy once mistook for love. He would not kneel where he once sacrificed. He would not shrink to be understood. He would stand as he is. And from that posture, you see something that was always there, but hidden behind pain. You were not abandoned. You were redirected. You were not betrayed. You were spared, because your softness was never meant to be weaponized. Your patience was never meant to be punished. It was meant to be met, matched, revered, and yes, tested, but not by chaos, by life, because life will test you every day, but not for drama, for discipline, for direction. And the woman who S meant for you, 1T, test your love to prove her worth. She will test your presence to reflect your purpose. She will not run from your calm. She will draw strength from it. She will not push your buttons to provoke a reaction. She will respect your boundaries because she honors her own. But to meet her, you must become the man you once hoped she would bring out of you. You must stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. And no, that's not a slogan. That's not some self-help soundbite. It is the foundation. Because until you see yourself clearly, you will always attract those who reflect your confusion. You will keep mistaking intensity for connection, attraction for alignment, chemistry for compatibility. Until you are clear, the world will keep offering you chaos as a test. And if you keep failing a TIFF, you keep returning to what breaks you. You would teach life that you are not ready. But when you stop running from solitude, when you start embracing your discipline, when you stop bleeding for women who never asked you to be strong, then life will shift. Quietly, relentlessly, your energy will change. Your circle will change. It's the women who once ignored your presence will feel uneasy around it. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're unshakable. Not because you're loud, but because your silence no longer seeks validation. And eventually, inevitably, someone will notice. Not the version of you that performs, the real you. The man who doesn't flinch. The man who knows his value, not because he's been told, but because he has suffered and survived and still chose to love anyway. That man is rare. That man is magnetic. Not in the way that draws everyone, but in the way that draws the right ones. Okay? And she's the one meant to meet you. There will not need chaos to feel alive. She will need clarity, and you will have it. She will need truth, and you will speak it. Not to win her, not to impress her, but because that's who you are now. A man no longer defined by who left. A man no longer tortured by the fact that his love wasn't tea enough for someone who couldn't tea yet receive it. A man who learned the most important lesson of all. That being left isn't tea, the end. It's the beginning. If you let it be, you stop trying to fix the past and start forging the future. One quiet step at a time, with no need to prove anything, with no desire to return to the wreckage, with only one goal to build something better within you, around you, for you. Because she may have chosen chaos, but now you choose peace. It's not the peace that pleads to be kept, the peace that refuses to be lost. The man who rises from rejection is not the same man who begged to be seen. He is quieter now, not because he has nothing to say, but because he has nothing to prove. He has outgrown the need to be understood by those who never tried. He has stopped handing his softness to storms. He has stopped offering his steadiness to chaos. There is no resentment left and only reverence for what it taught him. She left, and it hurt. But it also unveiled something sacred, that no woman, no person, no outside validation will ever complete a man. He completes himself in the furnace of solitude. In the cold hours of early morning when no one texts back. In the silence after he finally stops checking. That is where he becomes real. Not the fantasy version he once crafted to be chosen, but the man whose presence is its own proof of worth. He no longer seeks peace in her arms. He brings peace to the room. He doesn't love to be loved back. He loves because love is who he is: silent, intentional, clean. And when the world tries to shake him again, when another test comes disguised as beauty, he will not chase. He will not plead. He will not mistake longing for loyalty. He will ask one question: does this align with the life I've built in truth? And if the answer is no, he will walk on. Because the man who has faced himself, who has sat with the ache without needing it soothed, is no longer ruled by desire. He is led by clarity. He no longer fears being alone. He fears being out of alignment. And that makes him dangerous not to others, but to every version of himself that once settled, that once spent, that once tried to earn what was never meant to be his. Now, his life is sacred ground. His time, his energy, his soul given by invitation, not by accident. He loves, still, but wisely. He gives, still, Tage, but consciously. And when he meets Hearth the one who does not flinch at his stillness, who does not mistake silence for weakness, who does not need chaos to feel alive. He will not be surprised. He will be ready, because she will not save him, but she'll reflect him, and he'll know her not by how loudly she loves him, but by how peacefully she stands beside him. There will be no tests, no games, no conditions. It's just two warriors who've seen enough of life's cruelty to recognize the rarity of calm. They will not fear boredom. They will celebrate it, because they know that real connection does not need drama to stay warm. It only needs truth and presence and breath, and the kind of touch that says, "You're safe now, not because I hold you, but because you've already held yourself." That is where this ends. Not with revenge, not with triumph, with stillness, with a man who no longer blames himself for being left by someone who wasn't ready to be loved without chaos. A man who no longer waits to be chosen because he has already chosen himself. A man who stands, scarred but not bitter, firm but not closed, gentle but not naive. He does not apologize for the peace he brings. He protects it. He lives it. And if she cannot meet him there, he does not try to pull her up. He lets her go gracefully, because he knows now. Some women only come to teach you what not to give away again. She chose chaos, but you chose clarity, and that will make all the difference. If this spoke to you, don't let it end here. Share it with one man, just one. The man still blaming himself, till man still chasing chaos. The man who needs to hear that peace is not weakness, and being left was never failure. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, not just for us, but for the next man scrolling who needs a sign to stay strong. And if you're ready to build a life that no longer begs for love, but breathes in truth, stay with us. This is not just a video, it's a movement. You're not alone anymore. Welcome home.